So, in just 7 years, 24 rabbits had become more than 14,000 here at Barwon Park, Austin's home. And local landholders were beginning to complain bitterly that rabbits were taking over their pastoral properties and eating their crops.
It starts as a whisper, leaves rustling, water rippling, a single insect taking flight. Then, the destruction begins. Crops wither overnight, forests fall silent, and rivers boil with creatures that shouldn't be there. Some were brought in by accident, others on purpose. But how did these invaders take over? From monster fish that devour everything in their path to plants choking entire forests, these creatures are causing billions in damage. Join us as we reveal 20 of the worst invasive species from the US. Number 20. Rabbits. The release of a few rabbits sparked a widespread catastrophe that took over a century of effort just to start managing the destruction. Back in 1859, a wealthy landowner introduced just a few wild rabbits to his property in Melbourne, Australia.
We're releasing the rabbits on Christmas Day, and we shall go out and hopefully shoot them all.
Within a few years, their population exploded, and in half a century, they had spread across the continent, wreaking havoc on crops, soil, and local wildlife. Despite numerous attempts to control the infestation, including fences, poisons, and even viruses, nothing seemed to stop them.
Building a wall that was rabbit-proof was quite an exercise because they had to dig down so the rabbits couldn't easily burrow under it.
Eventually, a virus wiped out a large portion of the population, but those in cooler, wetter areas survived and developed resistance. Australia's delicate ecosystem wasn't prepared for this new addition. Rabbits, being the overachievers they are when it comes to reproduction, spread like wildfire. By the early 20th century, their numbers skyrocketed to over 10 billion. The damage didn't stop at overgrazing native plants. Their insatiable hunger caused widespread habitat destruction, soil erosion, and a drastic decline in biodiversity.
They pose a big risk to agriculture, to nature reserves, to urban amenity.
Those seemingly harmless holes in the ground were more than just cute. These critters destabilized roads, embankments, and infrastructure. It was almost like they were playing a game of wrecking ball, demolishing anything in their way. Number 19. The Asian carp.
We've chronicled the problems that a particularly invasive species, Asian carp, have posed for the past few years.
They were supposed to be the solution to an aquatic problem, but now these giant invasive fish are causing chaos in the Great Lakes. The invasive Asian carp have been wreaking havoc across the United States, causing ecological chaos, particularly in the Mississippi River Basin.
Asian carp, a fish that has already wreaked environmental havoc up and down the Mississippi River watershed.
Now, they're threatening the Great Lakes too. What's almost comical is that they were intentionally introduced in the 1970s with the hope of controlling algae and weeds in aquaculture. But, as you can probably guess, things didn't exactly go as planned. The fish managed to escape into the wild during various floods, and now they are completely out of control. These massive, aggressive fish are not just your average swimmers. They have insatiable appetites for plankton and are incredibly efficient at reproducing. Because of this, they easily outcompete native fish, completely disrupting the ecosystems they invade. They've been wreaking havoc on both commercial and sport fisheries alike, leaving a trail of damage in their wake. The consequences of this carp invasion go far beyond just fish displacement. Silver carp, in particular, are known for leaping out of the water when startled.
Oh, I got it. Oh my God, oh my God. I got it.
This behavior may seem amusing at first, but it's putting boaters in real physical danger, as the large fish can jump into boats and cause serious injury. The presence of these invasive carp is completely changing the landscapes they inhabit, particularly in places like Lake Erie. There are even predictive models suggesting that Asian carp could dominate up to 30% of the fish biomass in the lake within the next 2 decades. If this happens, local species like walleye could be completely displaced. Number 18. The red-eared slider. A careless decision to release pet turtles into the wild has sparked a worldwide takeover by red-eared sliders, whose rapid reproduction and disease-carrying nature are turning them into a real environmental menace. Today, this crafty invader has established a presence on every continent except Antarctica. The cause of this relentless invasion lies in human folly.
So we capture the turtles, we bring them in, we mark them uniquely.
A strange fascination with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, combined with irresponsible pet ownership, such as abandoning turtles when they outgrow their tanks or live far longer than anticipated, led to a full-blown turtle uprising. The red-eared sliders wreak havoc in non-native environments by outcompeting indigenous turtle species for food, nesting sites, and basking areas. In places like Canada and California, they're a direct threat to native species such as the western painted turtle and the western pond turtle. The reason for their success: they're big, adaptable, and breed like there's no tomorrow.
This turtle, believe it or not, this turtle will get to be much larger than the painted turtles do.
Females can lay up to 180 eggs each year, which is a whole lot of new turtles to contend with. But that's not all. These turtles also carry diseases like salmonella and respiratory infections, which can easily spread to other wildlife and even humans. To make matters worse, red-eared sliders have become breeding grounds for antibiotic-resistant bacteria, thanks to their exposure to antibiotics in hatcheries. So, not only are they taking over ecosystems, but they might just end up being the ones to endanger our very existence. Number 17. Fire ants. Imagine sitting peacefully in the grass, only to suddenly feel a fiery sting that makes you jump up in panic. What you didn't realize is that you've just become the target of an angry ant. Ants are already a nuisance, but fire ants are a whole different breed of trouble. These tiny, relentless creatures can quickly turn a calm day into a painful ordeal. Once they find a spot to invade, like your garden or, heaven forbid, your kitchen, they're almost impossible to get rid of. Fire ants, with their stinging zeal and vicious defenses, take it to another level.
Unlike bees, fire ants will sting and they'll keep stinging until they've exhausted their venom load.
If you've ever unknowingly sat on a fire ant nest, you know exactly how vicious they can be. These little terrors don't just sting, they unleash a deadly weapon. Not only do they attack with a venomous bite, but they also spray a painful formic acid that burns like fire. And if you're unlucky enough to anger them, the onslaught could even be fatal. Not the kind of neighbors you'd want to have. Number 16. European starling. What began as an innocent introduction of a beautiful bird species soon spiraled into one of the most chaotic invasions in North American history. Known for their impressive vocal talents, including the ability to mimic human speech, these birds are as captivating as they are clever. Native to Europe, they have spread their wings far and wide, making themselves at home across the globe. However, in North America, the starling's invasion has been deeply felt. While their striking appearance and adaptability may have initially won them some admiration, these birds soon proved to be unwelcome guests, wreaking havoc on both ecosystems and economies. They earned their reputation as invasive pests in the United States. When European starlings set foot on North American soil, they wasted no time making themselves at home. Thriving in their new environment, these birds spread across the continent with breathtaking speed, as if determined to claim their place in the sky. As cavity nesters, they quickly outpaced native species like bluebirds, aggressively taking over nesting sites and pushing out the competition. Their aggressive expansion wasn't limited to the skies, though. Starlings also wreaked havoc on the land. These opportunistic feeders consumed everything in sight, from crops meant for livestock to leftover scraps, causing massive damage to agriculture. Each year, their destructive presence costs the farming industry over $1 billion. Worse still, starlings aren't just a nuisance for farmers. They are a serious aviation hazard.
The Belgian Air Force Hercules struck a flock of starlings and crashed, killing 34 passengers.
Large flocks have been responsible for numerous bird strikes, posing a risk to airplanes and passengers alike. Despite multiple attempts to curb their numbers, European starlings continue to flourish in North America, becoming a striking example of how human actions, however well-intentioned, can trigger far-reaching ecological consequences. Number 15. Burmese pythons. While it may seem like the alligator is the undisputed ruler of the food chain, especially in Florida's Everglades, there's another creature lurking that challenges its dominance: the Burmese python. These massive snakes have found the Floridian wetlands to be an ideal breeding ground, bringing them into frequent clashes with the region's alligators.
Pythons thrive in warm climate, which is why they've quickly adapted here in the Everglades, and they're spreading.
In this ongoing battle for supremacy, the two reptiles have become bitter rivals, with alligators sometimes gobbling up smaller pythons. However, the pythons, particularly the larger adults, present a real threat to the alligator population. When the odds are in their favor, these giant serpents can easily overpower a gator, turning the encounter into a dangerous fight for survival. The struggle between these two creatures is a true battle of kill or be killed, with no room for hesitation. In captivating footage, we see the fearless python slithering towards various alligators underwater, making several attempts to engage. But despite its efforts, each battle is swiftly thwarted as the alligators dart away from the persistent snake. The pythons, after all, need to coil around their prey and suffocate it, an exhausting process that can take several minutes, especially with a large alligator. The question remains, can these powerful snakes truly conquer such a formidable meal, or are they simply biting off more than they can chew? Number 14. Feral cats. From cute pets to ecosystem destroyers, feral cats are quietly causing one of the most pressing environmental problems we've never fully realized.
Including animal control, code enforcement, and the Shelby County Health Department to see what can be done to remove the feral cats.
Estimates say there are somewhere between 70 and 100 million feral and outdoor cats living in the United States. And these aren't just pets that wander out for a bit. Many are born in the wild or abandoned. They're incredibly resourceful and survive by hunting the local wildlife. Each feral cat kills about 7 birds every year. Multiply that by the number of feral cats running around, and we're talking over 1 billion birds each year. And it's not just birds. These cats also go after small mammals, reptiles, rabbits, and squirrels. All in all, they're responsible for wiping out around 2 billion animals annually, throwing ecosystems completely out of balance, especially in places like Hawaii, where native species don't stand a chance against these newcomers. Domestic cats were brought over by European settlers centuries ago, and since then, they've multiplied and spread like wildfire. Now, they're doing more damage than we could have ever imagined. But it's not just the environment at risk. These cats also bring diseases like cat scratch fever, plague, and ringworm, not to mention being a major vector for rabies. They're more than just a nuisance. They're a full-blown health threat. So what can we do about this growing problem? Experts suggest the trap-neuter-return method as a way to control the population by stopping further breeding. However, some critics, particularly conservationists, argue that releasing these cats back into the wild doesn't solve the issue. Number 13. Kudzu. Kudzu, often called the vine that ate the South, is the epitome of a plant gone rogue.
On a planet where there is nothing. But what it really became was, how can I eliminate kudzu in an environmentally friendly way?
Originally native to Japan and China, this invasive species was introduced to the United States during the 1876 Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia as a decorative vine. Later, in the 1930s, it was promoted for its ability to control soil erosion. What initially seemed like a harmless plant soon evolved into an unstoppable force of nature. With its rapid growth and resilience, kudzu may have seemed like a beneficial addition at first, but it quickly transformed into a relentless invader that would swallow everything in its path. This climbing perennial vine can grow up to 1 foot per day under ideal conditions, forming thick mats of foliage that smother trees, shrubs, and even buildings. Kudzu flourishes in the warm, sunny climates of the southeastern United States, making regions like Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi easy targets for its expansion. Each year, this vine spreads across thousands of acres, outcompeting native vegetation and destroying vital habitats. It also disrupts power lines, overtakes entire fields, and, to make matters worse, contributes to air pollution by increasing ozone emissions. It's clear, this plant isn't just a nuisance, it has become a full-blown environmental disaster. Number 12. Zebra mussels. Zebra mussels, small, striped freshwater invaders, have become one of the most relentless troublemakers in North America. Native to the Caspian and Black Seas, these tiny mollusks hitchhiked their way to the Great Lakes in the 1980s, unknowingly transported by ballast water from transatlantic ships. A classic case of human carelessness, This accidental introduction set off a chain reaction of environmental havoc that we're still trying to clean up.
With the Sibley Nature Center in Midland, the zebra mussels thrive in water.
Since their arrival, zebra mussels have spread like wildfire, claiming vast territories across the United States and Canada. These little creatures are prolific filter feeders, devouring massive quantities of plankton. While their water filtering skills might seem like a gift, clearing up murky waters, they come with a dark side. By starving native fish and wildlife of vital food sources, they disrupt ecosystems in ways that reverberate through the food chain. But the damage doesn't stop there. These mussels are notorious for their invasive behavior, smothering native mussels by attaching themselves in dense clusters and clogging up water systems with their waste. They're not content to stay hidden under the surface. They're also wreaking havoc on infrastructure, blocking pipes, water intake systems, and equipment. Power plants, water treatment facilities, and industries that rely on water have been forced to shell out billions of dollars to rid themselves of this slippery menace.
The utility pulled one of its intake pipes out to find the invasive mussels crusted onto the pump.
So, while zebra mussels may be small in size, their impact is anything but. They've turned into a giant problem that won't be easy to escape. Number 11. The cane toad. What if one creature, bred for a noble cause, could unravel an entire ecosystem and transform into one of the most infamous invaders in the world? The cane toad is one of the most notoriously destructive invaders to ever cross borders. Native to South and Central America, this amphibian has been introduced to many parts of the world with the intent of solving local problems, only to quickly become a far worse one. Their story is one of unintended chaos and ecological disaster. In 1935, these toads were brought to Queensland, Australia, in an attempt to control sugarcane pests. As is often the case with such well-meaning but misguided efforts, things spiraled out of control. Instead of solving the pest problem, the cane toad became a far larger menace. Resilient and adaptable, these toads can survive in extreme conditions, from drought to blistering tropical heat, and they will gobble up anything smaller than themselves. To make matters worse, they can lay up to 30,000 eggs in a single clutch, multiplying rapidly and spreading their dominance. But the cane toad's real danger lies not in its numbers, but in its toxic defense mechanism. The toad's skin produces a deadly secretion known as bufotoxins, capable of killing most predators, including native species that might attempt to make a meal out of them. This has led to the decline of animals such as snakes, lizards, and small mammals. And even household pets like dogs are at risk when coming into contact with these toxic creatures. Beyond Australia, cane toads have invaded parts of Asia, the Pacific Islands, and Florida.
Ever made in Australia, and that is the introduction of the cane toad.
Everywhere they go, they disrupt ecosystems, outcompeting native amphibians and poisoning the predators that would normally keep their population in check. The result is a wide-scale ecological imbalance. It's a perfect storm of destruction, one that continues to spread, causing massive headaches for those trying to restore the natural balance. Number 10. The brown marmorated stink bug. The brown marmorated stink bug made its unwelcome debut in the United States from East Asia in the late 1990s, and since then, it's been causing chaos in homes and fields alike. Most likely hitching a ride with cargo shipments, this sneaky insect quickly spread to more than 42 states across the country. These bugs come with a shield-shaped brown body, typically growing to around half an inch to 3/4 of an inch in length, and they've got quite the appetite. With a taste for over 170 different plant species, including apples, pears, peaches, beans, and even your prized ornamental plants, this little pest has no intention of being a guest in your garden. What makes these bugs particularly troublesome is their ability to invade not just the outdoors, but your home as well.
Brown marmorated stink bug is not a native species, it's native to Asia.
As the weather cools down in the fall, they seek warmth and shelter, often invading homes in droves, squeezing through tiny cracks and gaps in windows and doors. Once inside, they become a persistent nuisance, releasing a foul odor when disturbed, which gives them their infamous name. It's not just the smell that's bothersome though. These stink bugs cause real damage to crops and gardens, creating havoc for farmers and gardeners trying to protect their produce. Their feeding behavior is what makes them so destructive. They use their sharp mouth parts to puncture fruits and plants, injecting digestive enzymes to break down the tissues, which in turn causes them to become deformed or prematurely ripen. This can lead to significant crop loss, affecting everything from apples to soybeans, leaving farmers with fewer harvests, and, ultimately, financial losses. Number 9. Nutria. These large web-footed rodents have an affinity for the water, preferring to swim rather than lounge on land. Living in burrows along riverbanks, lake shores, and wetlands, Nutria are exceptional swimmers, capable of staying submerged for up to 5 minutes without needing to come up for air. Native to South America, Nutria have found their way into various parts of the world, including Canada and more than a dozen states in the United States.
Nutria multiply fast. They eat vegetation constantly.
How did they end up so far from home? Well, humans are to blame once again. In a misguided effort to populate fur farms, these creatures were transplanted from their native land. However, as often happens with creatures who don't belong in captivity, many managed to escape and, once free, proved particularly skilled at reproducing and establishing large, wild populations. Today, the Nutria is a prime example of an invasive species, an unwelcome visitor making its mark in places it has no business being, wreaking havoc wherever it goes. Number 8. Northern snakehead fish. In 2002, an unexpected and rather alarming visitor made its way into a pond in Maryland. The northern snakehead, a predatory fish native to China, Korea, and Russia, had somehow found its way across the globe and into the United States.
The northern snakehead is a top predator. They reproduce very quickly and in large numbers.
While it may have been initially shocking, its arrival was just the beginning of a much bigger problem. These resilient fish, which have established populations in several states, particularly around the Chesapeake Bay, have proven to be masters of survival. Not only can they thrive in various water conditions, but they can also breathe air and survive out of water for up to 4 days, thanks to special organs. But that's not the creepiest part. The northern snakehead also can walk on land. With no natural predators to keep them in check, these ruthless invaders are wreaking havoc, preying on anything they can find, from other fish to amphibians, insects, and even small mammals. Trying to control their population has become an ecological nightmare, and it looks like this fish is here to stay. Number 7. Asian tiger mosquito. As the Asian tiger mosquito marches into new territories, they don't just change the landscape, they bring with them a dangerous wave of illness and fear. It's no secret that mosquitoes are one of the deadliest species on Earth. These tiny pests are responsible for more human deaths each year than any other living being. Recent estimates suggest that mosquito bites lead to over 1 million deaths annually.
Yeah, Fox 43's Matt Kleindance examines the control methods you can use to stop a particular kind of mosquito from spreading.
The problem began in the early 1980s when a particularly dangerous species of mosquito made its way to the United States in a shipment of used tires. Known as the Asian tiger mosquito, this aggressive little creature didn't just stay put, it spread rapidly, reaching over 40 states, and shows no sign of slowing down. Its name comes from the striking black and white pattern on its body, making it easy to spot, though not easy to swat. These mosquitoes are quick to bite, often escaping before you even notice.
Unlike most mosquitoes, the Asian tiger mosquito tends to bite people in the middle of the day.
The females are particularly crafty, laying their eggs anywhere they can find water, whether it's a trickling stream or a stagnant puddle. Believe it or not, less than an ounce of water is all it takes to breed the next generation. What makes these mosquitoes so tough to deal with is their adaptability. They thrive near humans, and with their fast reproductive cycle, they're nearly impossible to control. A 2019 study in Nature Microbiology painted a bleak picture, predicting that urbanization, climate change, and human expansion will only fuel the rise of the Asian tiger mosquito. That's not just an annoying bite you're dealing with. These insects are known carriers of diseases like yellow fever, dengue fever, chikungunya, and even Zika virus, making them a real threat to public health for years to come. Number 6. The spongy moth. The spongy moth, introduced by accident in 1869 by an overly ambitious entomologist, has become one of the most persistent invaders in North America. What began as an innocent experiment to crossbreed with silkworms quickly spiraled out of control, as these relentless creatures escaped his garden and spread like wildfire, leaving a trail of devastation. The moths, originally meant to stay confined to a controlled environment, managed to escape the entomologist's garden and soon began spreading across the landscape. What seemed like a small mishap at the time turned into a catastrophic blunder. The moths, determined to survive, quickly adapted to their new environment and multiplied at an alarming rate.
Invasive spongy moth that you see here causing a headache for people in a Saratoga Springs neighborhood.
By the time 1900 rolled around, the spongy moth had already established a solid presence in New England. Despite efforts to contain the population and eradicate the invasive species, it had found its foothold in the ecosystem, proving to be far more resilient than anyone had anticipated. Over the years, the spread of these moths continued, and today, they are found in over 20 states across the United States and parts of eastern Canada. What started as a localized issue soon turned into a continent-wide problem. What makes the spongy moth particularly destructive is its larvae, the caterpillars. These hungry creatures have a voracious appetite for tree leaves, feasting on them for up to 40 days at a time.
That allow them to climb up trees and climb onto leaves.
In fact, they can strip entire trees of every single leaf, leaving them weak and vulnerable. For trees already stressed by drought or disease, this leaf loss can be the final blow, leading to the tree's eventual death. The caterpillars aren't picky about their diet either. They will consume the leaves of at least 300 species of trees, meaning the threat is widespread, affecting forests, urban areas, and agricultural lands alike. The damage caused by these caterpillars goes beyond just the trees they consume. The widespread defoliation creates imbalances in the local ecosystems, affecting animals that rely on these trees for shelter and food. Furthermore, the economic impact of the spongy moth is staggering.
Oak trees like this can be the perfect meal for spongy moth caterpillars.
To combat the infestation and protect forests, a staggering budget of approximately $3 billion is spent annually on control measures. Despite this effort, the moth's persistence continues to be a serious problem, and the battle to stop its spread feels like an uphill struggle. Number 5. Wild boar. Somewhere in the wilderness of the United States, wild boars are wreaking havoc, living like they own the place. Native to Eurasia and parts of North Africa, these animals have managed to find their way into various regions of the United States, thanks to none other than humans. Yes, once again, we've managed to unintentionally introduce an animal that's throwing everything off balance. In places like Louisiana, wild boars, or as they're often called feral hogs, have become a real nuisance. It's estimated that there are well over 750,000 of them roaming around the state. With such a large population, hog hunting has become a popular pastime for many. However, despite the hunting efforts, it doesn't seem to be making much of a dent in their numbers. These creatures are very tough and breed quickly. Their ability to reproduce so fast causes their numbers to keep growing.
Running wild there for decades, and now for the first time being spotted in the United States.
Making it harder to control them and leading to more harm to the environment. Wild boars are opportunistic feeders. They'll eat just about anything, from roots and plants to small animals, which can wreak havoc on local ecosystems. When left unchecked, they destroy crops, disturb habitats, and threaten native species by competing for resources. Their burrowing also causes soil erosion, and their aggressive behavior makes them a danger to both wildlife and humans.
And the topic of wild hogs comes up, you're going to have farmers and ranchers complaining about the damage that they've done.
Number 4. House sparrow. The house sparrow, once a proud resident of Europe and parts of Asia, never had intentions of calling America home. But in the year 1851, a group of well-meaning individuals thought it would be a marvelous idea to introduce 100 of these feathery creatures to Brooklyn, New York. It's safe to say that the sparrows found their new digs more than welcoming. These clever little birds are the ultimate survivors, with a knack for adapting to nearly any environment, especially urban spaces. They'll nest in the smallest cracks and crevices, claiming any corner of the city as their own. It didn't take long for these tiny adventurers to realize they had an endless buffet of food to feast upon, from scattered crumbs on sidewalks to the insects they could easily snatch. What started as an attempt to manage an insect problem quickly turned into a full-fledged sparrow invasion. Their wings spread across the continent as they built their nests, raised their young, and expanded their territory far beyond Brooklyn's borders.
I'm going to say it's a sparrow as well, because some of them are the little brown ones and some of them have got the little black masks on, haven't they? So I think...
But as with most things that come too easily, their success has had consequences. House sparrows are not only adaptable, they are aggressive. They will fiercely protect their nesting spots, driving native birds away from their homes, destroying eggs, and even killing the young to claim the space for themselves. They've turned into the bullies of the bird world. And now, with their population thriving from coast to coast, there's little to be done. It seems the toothpaste is well and truly out of the tube. Number 3. Nile monitor lizards. In Florida, an unnoticed trade of exotic pets has unleashed a storm of invasive species, reshaping the state's wildlife forever. The state is home to more non-native species than any other place in the United States. Some of these species are particularly alarming, such as the Nile crocodile, which has even been spotted in Florida's wild areas. While there is no evidence to suggest that Nile crocodiles have established breeding populations in the state, the situation is different for Nile monitor lizards. These lizards have successfully created breeding populations, particularly in Lee County. Their ability to adapt to a wide variety of food sources makes them a major threat to native species, leading to a considerable decline in local wildlife.
It is a Nile monitor lizard. It's a new invasive species showing up in Palm Beach County, right?
Moreover, Nile monitor lizards have been linked to the mysterious disappearances of both livestock and pets. With a high reproductive rate and the ability to thrive in both freshwater and saltwater environments, these lizards pose a significant ecological challenge. Number 2. The signal crayfish. It was supposed to be the answer to a problem, but the signal crayfish brought more than anyone bargained for: plague, damage, and chaos. The signal crayfish seemed like the perfect solution, a commercially viable species that could be exported to the booming Scandinavian market. Unfortunately, these crayfish were also carrying the very plague that had decimated the native populations, and they quickly spread it to even more of the native species in the United Kingdom. The signal crayfish have caused a major blow to the native white-clawed crayfish, but the damage doesn't stop there. They're also messing with the local fish and frog populations, not only eating them directly, but also going after their eggs. As if that wasn't enough, these invaders have a serious environmental impact too. Their love for burrowing deep into riverbanks weakens the soil, leading to erosion and further destruction of the ecosystem.
There is a market. They taste absolutely fantastic. They look pretty prehistoric, but they do taste good.
Experts estimate that the damage caused by these crayfish has cost millions of pounds, and sadly, it doesn't look like they're going anywhere anytime soon. Number 1. The raccoons. Once just a curious critter in North America, raccoons have become an unstoppable force, invading new territories and causing chaos. Raccoons have exceptionally sensitive hands that allow them to hunt in water and sneak into people's homes. In many languages, they're named after those dexterous hands, which are one of the things that set them apart.
That's the only way I can get out.
Those bandit mask markings on their faces help them see better. The black fur works like the stickers athletes wear to reduce glare, absorbing light to keep it from blinding them. But despite their cleverness, raccoons don't always have the best reputation. They're incredibly adaptable and one of the few species that are thriving in urban areas, happily going through garbage cans. They're not lazy though. Raccoons are opportunistic feeders, which means they're always on the lookout for a meal.
Feeding raccoons living around her home for almost 4 decades.
Some experts say they're as smart as certain primates, which is why they do so well in cities. But raccoons aren't just confined to North America anymore. They've spread to parts of Europe. In Germany, they're called wash bears because of their habit of dunking food in water. In Japan, things went a little wild too. Many of these pets either escaped or were released, and now they can be found in 42 of Japan's 47 prefectures. These raccoons are causing serious damage to agriculture, over 30 million yen worth in Hokkaido alone. Plus, they're competing with native species like the raccoon dog, which doesn't stand a chance against the raccoon's cunning and adaptability. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.